Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is me, Sal Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, and we're premiering the Warlock Asylum show. Today, I have a wonderful guest. This woman is dynamic. I mean, what she gives to the community and to the art world is absolutely tremendous. Her name is Stacey Prussman, and I'm going to have her introduce herself.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be on the Warlock Asylum. I'm running for mayor of New York City on the Libertarian Party ticket. I'm very excited. I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Brooklyn. I still live here. I lived in almost every borough of New York City, Manhattan. Wow. I lived in Queens. I lived in the Bronx for a little bit. I lived everywhere a little bit. So so glad to be here and tell you about what I'm doing here in New York and the campaign. And it's been exciting. Quite a race.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and thanks for the introduction. I know the buzzword is getting around, so it's really a fabulous time, and your energy, your synergy is so inspirational. You know, I mean,
thank you.
Wow, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Tell us a little bit about your beginning. I know that you lived in, you're a native New Yorker, you know, and you lived in several different boroughs, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I moved around a lot. Artists tend to do that. Well, I come from a background. I started actually working in high school as a liaison between the League of Women Voters and kids voting for the very first time. I registered the seniors in my school for the very first time. I was only 17. I wasn't even able to register to vote, but I was excited to watch them register to vote and then vote when they were 18. So that was really exciting. And then I continued on. I was always a performing artist. I was an actress. I am an actress, a comedian, a stand-up comic, and a writer, singer, do it all. Mostly stand-up comedy and acting. Mostly that's what I do. And then motivational speaker. So I started speaking at universities, colleges, treatment centers, military academies, corporations throughout the country. And then I started doing radio kind of seriously 2015. I hosted a radio station, I hosted a radio show on a libertarian radio station with my friend Bob. And then from there, I kind of decided I wanted to run for office. And this was like 2015, 14. So it was in my head, but I didn't take it that seriously until I spoke to Larry Sharp in 2018, coming out of a radio show when he was campaigning for his gubernatorial campaign. And then I said, I want to run for mayor. And then that's how it all sort of started. And then when the lockdown happened around 2020, I declared officially.
Wow.
And then I've been doing this since the winter of 2020.
Wow.
The winter of 2020.
Okay, great. That's great.
It's been a long time. It's been over a year. It'll be over a year.
And that's a tremendous perspective, being in the art world, being a performer artist, being an actress, is great. I know I had studied acting for quite some time myself, as well as doing music and stuff. So, New York City, for those who are watching this that may not be aware of the city vibe, it's like, I think John Lennon called it like the Paris of artistry. It's beautiful, the people that you run into. I think since the pandemic, a lot has slowed down in the last administration towards that aim. But if you're cut from the native New Yorker cloth, that is one of the things that you definitely appreciate about the city is the artistry and the, what artists give to the city. That should not. We
are the city of the arts. Like, yeah. That's we have a great business. We have, economy here, which we've had, but the arts here specifically of the museums, the fine artists, the musicians, the actors, this is the place everyone would come to, they'd come here to make it. They'd come here to express themselves, to be themselves,
Yeah.
People, Stonewall happened here. People came out of the closet here. This is the place where people became who they were as an artist, as a human being. And we can't lose that. That's the heart of New York, is our artists.
Yeah.
And that's the soul of who we are.
Yeah. That's a big quality, because that draws to the quality of life. People forget, some of the things that are drawn from art. Like, for example, I know over the past I would say the past decade, we had like a lot of performing arts spaces closed down for music.
Tons.
And, you know, it robs the people in a sense, because those activities like dancing and things, they rid the body of negative energy. And
Yes,
so
that's so funny you say that. I love dancing. So
yeah.
when I have a chance during the summer, when I wasn't campaigning, I would go to Coney Island on Saturday evenings, and they would have a DJ, and usually old school. I like the old school.
Yeah.
So I would and it was just this eclectic group of New Yorkers dancing on a boardwalk during the pandemic, and it was such peace and love and great music. And I never want to. I like stay all night. I'd love it, like until they closed it. And I just think that that is what makes New York so wonderful. Like, you know, dancing, and even dancing, it could be in your soul and your heart and your body. It's something that just creates this beautiful energy.
Yeah.
And I think that when we lose that, like I don't know if anyone's really going to like dance clubs anymore. I mean, I'm sure they're there, but I don't hear of it right now. It's like, even though we're opened up, I'm sure there are lots of young people going, but I don't know. It's not like the same way it was before the pandemic.
I know that there was some events going on at Fort Greene Park with the house music, crowd. And like you mentioned at Coney Island. And I remember like just walking to the city, walking through Compton Square Park, somebody pick up a vibe and people would hang out till 3, 4 in the morning. No one's thinking about, the crazy stuff that's going on now. And
they just want to have fun. Yeah. They just want to be like, with other people in a great vibe, in a great environment, feeling the beat, just being together. And like, I miss that in New York.
Yeah.
And we need more of that. We need more fun. I think that, we have a lot of other candidates that are running on, we're in a crime, and we're very, very, it's very, we have to be careful of the crime. And, I think that when you have a happy city and a healthy city, you have a crime-free city.
Yes. Yeah.
Because mental health is so mental health and crime go hand in hand. I don't care what anybody says. Mentally healthy people don't shoot each other. Mentally healthy people don't beat their wives or their boyfriends or their girlfriends.
Yeah.
Mentally healthy people don't beat their kids. Mentally healthy people are normally live, productive, happy lives without violence or crime. So, or addiction. Yeah. So if we can get our hands around creating a mentally healthy, happy city with art, with culture, with fun, I think that a lot of our crime would dissipate.
Yeah, that's
my opinion. Living in New York my whole life, I've seen the difference.
Yeah, that's a huge opinion. I want to touch on that a little bit later, but I want to get back to the beginning. I know you gave us a real strong background about your work in the arts and your experience and things of that nature. Let me ask, how did you decide to become a libertarian? What were some of the things that drew you, and what is your perspective on being a libertarian?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because so many, I came from a background of the two-party system, and because you can't vote in our primaries without being in the two-party system. So you pick a side and then you go with it, right? And so being a stand-up comic, being somebody who wants to have freedoms, and and as an artist, you want to have as many freedoms as you can. You don't want people to be in your space. Like, that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from there's nothing more libertarian than being a comedian, a stand-up comic. You're standing in a stage, telling jokes that, could be very off color, could be very off, very honest. It could be very dirty. It could be very edgy, whatever it might be. Every comic is different. But you're speaking your truth, you're speaking just for laughs. And, I think when, I believe very strongly in the freedom of speech. And I believe that speech also, there's when you have a stage to speak on, there's also responsibility too that you take. And whatever you say, you need to know that you're responsible for your words, because your word is literally everything.
Yeah, your sword, that's your word.
So I think that was something that drew me into the party. And I felt I felt there was a better way to go, politically. I don't know if our city is ready for such, such freedom. A lot of people have libertarian values. They're not aware of it. They're
Right,
just been,
right,
they just don't realize it. They
right,
might be a little left, they may be right, but they're libertarian in nature. People
right,
don't like to be bothered by the cops or the government. People don't want them in their lives. Like no one wants
right,
the government in your bank account and
right.
they want to, leave us alone, let us do business in peace and
Yeah,
let us exist. And
yeah,
I think that's what drew me to the Libertarian Party.
yeah. That was one of the core principles that drew me also too, is like the cry for like less government involvement in personal lives, and to preserve our personal freedoms that the Constitution and how the country was established. I think at different points in times, maybe some of the different parties that exist now may have echoed those things, but we've definitely got lost from that as a nation. So I believe that the Libertarian Party um, has a strong premise of succeeding out of the parties separate from the Democratic and Republican.
Oh, I totally believe
Yeah,
so. And
yeah,
I wish, well, I think the reason why the challenges are that there's so many different points of view in
mhm,
one party. It's not, there's a basic premise and then there's different like
right,
factions of the
right,
libertarian.
right,
So I
right,
think that's hurt us. Um, a lot of libertarians don't run for office. That's another issue. Or they become libertarian once they're in office.
yeah,
They do the two-party thing. So there's a lot of like challenges that we face as libertarians to get the word out there, actually being leaders.
yeah,
I think that I'm finding that running for office myself at the moment. So
yeah, yeah. Was there any sort of like political issues or jargon or whatever that may have pushed you, like, you know what, I'm definitely going to do this? Was there
you mean
some
in
back
terms of
becoming a
running
libertarian?
for office, running for office,
As far as
or
first
become?
becoming a libertarian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, well, I again the freedom of speech,
Hmm.
not being the government, staying out of my business, being able to work how I choose to when I'm not a status quo person, so I
Right,
was bored of I didn't believe the status quo anymore. It
right.
was disappointing me as a citizen. So we have so much bureaucracy specifically in our city
Yeah,
that doesn't need to be here. Any kind of city agency you have to go to, you'd be at the Board of Ed to get fingerprinted, to the DMV, to
yeah,
HRA. There's just, and some might be state interest, but just like the way things are ran.
yeah.
I think maybe that influenced me because I'm very much a New Yorker and everything I've done has been in and around New York.
The city. Yeah,
It's like everything is so mismanaged,
yeah, yeah,
and I think that a libertarian in charge would actually create streamlined versions of what is going on right now.
yeah.
And the taxes and the waste in New York, we have so much waste of money that aren't, they're like, we're gonna fix our homeless crisis, or but no one ever does it sustainably.
Hmm.
No, not one mayor has done it sustainably, not one person. So really sort of like getting, I believe that the people uh the power needs to go to the people but self-responsibility is very important.
Hmm.
And so that's sort of
Absolutely.
what, not being told. People never like to be told what to do.
Hmm.
That's why this, the mandates with the vaccines and this and that, it's creating a backlash. So
Hmm.
people that may have gotten the vaccine are like, I'm not getting the vaccine because the government told me to.
Yeah,
It was rolled out totally incorrectly. Anyone who had any distrust of the government now has more distrust.
yeah,
And so, like I believe the medical professionals should have just been in charge of that. The government should have said, all right, that's your expertise. We're
yeah.
going to get a panel of experts. We're going to allow doctors to give out the vaccines in their offices. We'll make it whatever. And if you want to go to a public place, we have that offer. But the doctors should have been allowed to get the vaccines, talk to their patients one-on-one, just like you would any other vaccine or any other sort of medical issue.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's kind of ironic because when you think about the responsibility of government and the responsibility of the individual, if someone is mandating something, you definitely better have some answers when people have questions about something and some tests, proof, and all this sort of thing. But just to go, one of the things that has pushed me towards this direction also is a lot of things in society have become theoretical. but theoretical as far as trying to make it a pillar of society. It's one thing to have a theory because there's definitely progress and free ideas, but when you start, everything now is so theoretical, like, and it's like what's taught in schools is theoretical. It's not really science. Like, I don't want to distract too much from the interview, but I remember the other day I was writing an article not too long ago about, this thing with the thesauruses and what's going on with some proto language that they're using, but there's absolutely no proof that this language existed, and you're putting in reference books. You know, like how can that happen? Like, there's a language that doesn't have any proof at all, no history at all to said to exist. And the only reason why it came up as a theory was because when the British was in India, they found out that Sanskrit was more complex than Greek. So let's make another language, because we don't want to give these people credit with certain things. Let's do this other thing. And this is in every reference book. And so there's a lot of things that are theoretical now that are being implemented as history or solid facts. But the fact that they're theories, they're mutable, they can be changed to
the theories. They haven't been proven yet.
Right. So that was one of the things that pushed me on, but not to distract too much, but let's
sure.
So going into that, what motivated you to run for mayor?
Well, I think when you're in dire circumstances, you make big decisions, right? So I'm a touring comic. I'll give my life. This is my typical life prior to the pandemic. Spots in the city, different clubs, right? Like doing a show in the city 3-4 times a week, going to do live podcast in a radio station or live radio, either be serious or a podcast like yours, but in, a real station. Yeah. Then, going out with my friends somewhere to dinner, and then traveling on the road on the weekends, 2-3 times a month to do a gig, or sometimes just for fun. Like, I was going to Pennsylvania and all over the country, every weekend somewhere different, or just sometimes just a city, whatever it was. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, I was in Los Angeles for about maybe 12 days or something, half business, half pleasure, having kind of a nice time with my friends, having, and working and all this stuff. And my friends are writing about the pandemic. I'm like, it didn't even make sense to me. It wasn't, this is March, and this is March, like this is the beginning of March. So this isn't even like, this is how fast it happened. So this is how fast the situation happened. So all of a sudden I go home. I was going to stay in LA, which is funny. You say that because if I would have stayed in LA, I was going to stay like for a month. I didn't have anything going on too much here, and something was maybe happening there. So I'm like, oh, let me Airbnb for a month or stay with my friends. And I'm like, let me just come home, readjust, and then I can always fly back out. I had flyer miles, $110 I'm going back to LA. Yeah. That was my plan. Well, I get back. I'm back for about a week or so. I do a lecture in a high school. And in the high school I was teaching at, I do lectures on eating disorders, body image, stress. And for different places, I do different lectures, but I was doing a eating disorder lecture. And then during like lunch, they're like, we're going to shut down. It was a private school. We're going to shut down the pandemic. Don't worry. We'll be back after, after it was like March, I guess Easter break or whatever it was. Right. Spring break. Right. We'll be back after spring break, which is maybe a few weeks. And like, I didn't, but I wasn't, I was there for the day. So I was like, oh, this is a little crazy, right? I said, this private school's overreacting. That's what I was thinking. I didn't, because we hadn't shut down yet. Right. So then, right. a few days later, I went out to dinner and everything was really creepy. Everyone was like, it was like the last hurrah before everything closed down.
Yes.
And then people were wearing rubber gloves, and I was like, because we were not used to. You have to think about it, this is pre-pandemic, and we're like eating, and we're like, ew, like it was uncomfortable. Like I'm like, these people are sitting like they were sitting near us, and that was weird. Like because with how the restaurants were all close together, people were used to sit next to each other, like right table to table. Yeah. So that was uncomfortable. And then the city closed down. And then I'm like, all
uh,
my gigs shut, all my gigs were, I had gigs planned, I had trips planned, I had, different, things I had to be away for, or, obviously shows in clubs. And like 1 week passed, 2 weeks passed, and I got in touch with Larry Sharp, and then I'm like, it's time to run for mayor. Like, I'm ready. It was like the perfect time. And then we got a team together, and then I did all the paperwork. It took a while, sort of like a few months. I declared, but then, you have to do all the paperwork and all that. And I was doing like pre-interviews before the paperwork and stuff, but then we did the paperwork, filed, then we went into petitioning season, and then that's like we had to get 4,000 or 5,000, 6,000 petitions. People signed the petition. It was like one thing after another, and then you're on the ballot. Now I'm on the ballot, so here we go. It does, and then
great.
doing interviews like yourself and meeting people. And
that's
thank you.
Tremendous work, because I know I looked at politics. You know what I mean? I think when you have something to say, and you want to bring something to the human community, human society, someone like yourself with a lot of experience in the psychology of how people think, and also being able to trigger certain emotions, even as a comedian. When you see society going through changes, it's definitely courageous to step up.
I saw what was happening to the city before it happened. Like, I just knew. I said, we need to figure out a way to reopen the city in a very safe way. We need to get people back into their lives. Not just, everyone's looking at the dollars and cents. That makes sense. But spiritually, psychologically, people are going to be damaged. And people don't see that. They just, we see the numbers. I mean, money takes care of things, but it doesn't cure everything. You could be wealthy and still choose to be homeless, or choose to be an addict, or whatever it might be, or choose to make bad choices. So it's not always money. And so I saw that we needed to create a city that is healthy mentally, and that we need to address that. Not just getting people back to work helps them feel alive again, or get them back to even having fun. It makes them feel alive again. If you're locking people up away from their friends, their families, they can't visit their, grandma, you think, a lot of COVID deaths might have been prevented, not just because of the disease, but having, that human contact with people that you love so much.
Yeah.
And I think that kills a lot of people. I think loneliness kills people, specifically older people.
Yeah, it was a very stiff time, because I remember the time that you were talking about. I think that was the weekend of March 13th, and people were given, we were given our laptops to work from the house, and
you're like, what is this? I'm getting a laptop.
And everyone was thinking like, someone would do something like in a month or two, but I remember also I went down to Sedona. This was like a couple of years
Arizona?
back. Arizona? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Beautiful place. Energy seeps from the ground. And when we got back to New York, I remember feeling like this cloud of depression over the city. You know what I mean?
And it still feels like that a little bit. Like,
New
I
York
think like younger people are just like whatever, but there's just like Manhattan specifically. I don't know if you like my neighborhood is like
definitely. A lot of things have moved out to like Brooklyn, some activities, but it's still
Queens, Brooklyn. Yeah.
Because of the terrain, where Manhattan is suitable to, let's say, okay, I'm in the East Village, let's hop over the 28th Street or something. It's very easy to get around. So there was a lot of things that people could do in a day in New York. Where if you're in Brooklyn, you really have to move around to get to different locations.
You need a car, or you need a reliable. Then the trains weren't running 24 hours for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, this is a city that never sleeps, and it fell asleep. I mean, really. I mean, I lived through 9/11. I was, I wasn't a kid during 9/11. I was a grown woman, and it was, shocking. And that was just one day, and we lost, sadly, 2,000 to 3,000 people, right? And so, and that was really rough. So this has been like a long time. Like 1 month turned into 2 months, turned into 3 months, and then summer it felt like it like eased up in the summer, and then and then we had a whole another year of this. Like
Yeah, yeah,
a whole year of our and a half of our lives. Like what happened?
yeah.
I mean, some people didn't really change much; their lives stayed the same. But most of my friends, like it was a big adjustment. Even seeing people now, people seem changed to me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's just, I was thinking about it the other day because, it's like, man, what's going on? And why aren't people saying what they need to say? I mean, it's good that there still exists civility, but in some terms, with some of the things that are coming out the windmill, you would think people would be more vocal or just more active in ensuring that society maintains a certain continuum. I know in New York, since 9/11, it's been a series of things going on. We had the thing that the hurricane that knocked out Hoboken and
Ida,
other areas. Yeah, it's been a series of things that going on. We had the blackout. We had something with the MTA strikes. Like it's been a little bit different vibe over the past few years. What are some of the things that are big points that your campaign is based on? Like, I know you mentioned mental health, which I think is a huge thing because even for myself, on the level of spirituality, today's society is definitely drugged. Not always in the physical sense, but even just in what they're taking in mentally.
right?
And
Yeah, like
they
the
people very
phone and the
passive, some in some ways immature, because they're just dealing with a certain tool set, that is contrived in a lot of ways, from my personal opinion. What are some other things? Well, maybe you could expand on the mental health first.
yeah. Well, education is one of my big pillars. I
Mhm.
want to democratize education so people could choose how they go to school, who teaches them, rather than the mayor's office just telling you this is how it's going to be. I want people to vote in their communities, who runs their schools, how they run. I want to make school choice a better, more options from the arts, the trade schools. I think it's great to have diversity in learning. I don't think
Right,
everyone should have the same learning. I
right.
think I believe in individuality in learning. I think that people learn differently. Their interests are different. I've worked in so many schools, and I want students to be excited to go to school, like, and not feel scared. I want to get that feeling of incarceration out of the school.
Mhm.
I also, uh, the animal rights is a huge platform of mine. I want to make the city no kill, not just for shelter pets. I want to create a better life for all animals in the city, wildlife. I want to end wet markets, particularly illegal ones. I want to ban the horse carriages need to end. We just had an incident a few days ago where they got hit by a car.
Wow.
Other cities are more humane. We're only as good of a society as how we treat our animals, and
Yeah.
we're the best city in the world, and we treat our animals crappy, then we're crappy people. I have a equitable basic income pilot I have coming out to help working people who suffer during the pandemic. And then I'd like to expand it, hopefully, as the city if it works, and bring it to other people, because I think I want to keep people out of welfare
Mhm.
system as best as they can.
Yeah.
I know it's there for a reason, but I think that we need to start helping people develop their best selves.
Yeah.
I know I sound like Oprah a little bit. We need to develop our best selves. I think we
That's
never
true.
lead that way. We
Yeah.
lead, like cavemen. We need to lead with, well, how can we make people be their best selves so they can create and be, there are probably so many people sitting in situations, and due to poverty, they can't, write that book. They can't
Yeah.
draw that picture. They can't write that song or do that play.
Yeah.
It's sad. It breaks my heart.
Yeah.
There's so much out there, so many stories to tell, that are out there ready for people to tell.
Okay, so let's say this is the big day and you're coming into office. What is one of the things that you plan to implement to restore people's faith in the city, to reduce the fear of the city, like that, like we discussed earlier, there's like this dark cloud. What is one of the things that you plan on implementing to kind of bring people on board with
The energy, right? Change the energy in the city.
Yeah.
A dark cloud, I remember 9/11, and I remember afterwards it was, I don't know if you lived in the city around that time or how old you are, but it was really depressing. We were looking for loved ones that were never coming home, posters everywhere, but we had a feeling of togetherness. We were united. We hugged, we held vigils. We did all sorts of things as a community. I think we need to really restore our neighborhoods. I think New York is about the neighborhoods. Those are the places that survived during the pandemic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of transient, areas that like people move into for 2 years, they move out and they move somewhere else, and particularly Manhattan, I find, or like a lot of people that like young professionals, they're single, they live in the studio, and then they move out to another state or something, or they try New York out, for instance. We have a lot of those people, which is great. It's fine. It's not for everybody. I think our next mayor, which I hope is me, is not going to lead with this doom and gloom and like it's all like this horrible crime and everything's bad. Like that energy is going to just create a darker cloud, and it's going to create more crime. Because if you deal with energy, I love energy work. I don't know if you do.
Yes,
and I'm not to sound so spiritual, but if you lead with, okay, we know we have a problem. Let's solve the problem, but we have all these good things, and let's emphasize the good things, the arts and the and the businesses, and let's get people going again. I think once people start getting back into their lives, they're less likely to commit crimes, be depressed, do drugs, commit violent random acts. Commit suicide. I think we need to treat this pandemic as if we just got out of a war.
Yeah.
Like post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. We need to treat it that way.
Yeah.
And any mayor who's running the city needs to speak to our citizens like we just came out of a very serious situation. And hopefully by January of 2022, we're out of it almost 100%.
Yeah.
Where we're not like doom and gloom. And then we have to start rebuilding. Zoning is a big issue. We're going to have to change the way we do zoning, de-zone a lot of our zoning. Be careful with our budget so it's going into the right places. A lot of money under de Blasio was lost. People thought their taxes were going lower. People in poverty, actually, their taxes were like $30,000 a year. Their taxes rose. So, hold your politicians responsible, city council people. There's a lot of great libertarians running, Matthew Morgan and Devin Balkine's running for public advocate. Eric Frankel's running. Siraj Kowal's running in Jackson Heights. They're libertarians. Vote for them. I hope I didn't miss anybody. We have a great team of really great city council people, which are the people you go to, learn who your city council people are, and talk to them. Then they go to the mayor. So people need to know how their government works. So we, get involved in your communities. I think building strong communities creates a big city. So each section of the city is really strong and powerful in their own right, and beautiful, which it is. And even that's the first thing that I think would be very important to implement is that the spirit. Like, I think the way you speak to your citizens is so important. I've spoken to a lot of people. They don't feel safe on the subways. Well, let's make them feel safe. How do we make them feel safe on the subways? Listen to, it's not just about what I want, it's what you guys want. I'm running for mayor to represent you, New Yorkers. And so, I've spoken to a lot of different people, and, I'm listening to you. I'm not ignoring you. I'm doing what I could within our budget without wasting your money. So that's important too.
Things are very important. And one thing that you did touch on that's definitely a motto of Warlock Asylum is spirituality, the spirit of the people, because that's very, very important. And I know for myself as a spiritualist, I know when we were praying for the city during the pandemic, I had a strange experience where I had a dream and I saw some disfigured thing trying to give me a hug. And then it dawned on me that a lot of the crime that's happening is because you have disembodied souls from the massive amount of death that happened to the environment. Years ago, they would have something like banishings and stuff. But as you touched on, to address that as if we had came out of the war, how do we heal people? Because that's like a modern representation of the alchemy today, is healing people psychologically, getting them out of the depressed state, that heaviness, that dark energy. And that
We're
was
in a very dark energy right now. Yeah, I feel energy. I mean, I don't want to, I'm running for mayor. Like, I don't want, I feel energy.
yeah,
And I specifically feel it in Manhattan. I don't know if you do. Like, when I go into Manhattan to work or to campaign, it feels weird. Like other parts of the city, not so. Midtown, the Village. I used to be in the Village all the time doing stand up. I go there now. There's like one block. It's packed, and I can't wait to get out of it. You walk 3 blocks. It's like, where am I? It's like a bomb went off in Greenwich Village. Didn't hit like 1 or 2 blocks, and then like blocks and blocks of emptiness up until like just big giant stores, empty, empty, empty. We had a libertarian thing, a happy hour in the 50s in Lexington in one of these hotels. This used to be bustling. Storefront, those big giant storefronts on Lexington closed down. Lunch places closed. Places that were there for years. Like, I'm like, where am I? It was like after the apocalypse, and that's what it feels like. And it's almost shocking, like when you see that and that energy. It's this one out, that one out. It's like almost too much to take, because it's even the littlest things that, like, oh, that lunch place where I used to go that had been there for 50 years, that place is closed. Or that clothing store which was there that had, great bargains and on Lexington, that they're closed. I mean, it is unbelievable. And so when you walk through the city in certain areas, it's like you feel this. It's like, what happened here? And that is like, and we could, if we had, let's say we had all this money come in somehow, I don't even think money can stop that. Like, I don't think just throwing money at the problem can stop that.
No, it takes a lot of healing. It takes a strong healing.
Yeah.
I remember walking recently from, I think Spring Street. I went by the Whole Foods by Spring Street. I think it's 7th or 6th or whatever.
Yeah, like Chelsea area. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I walked down. I saw West 4th. The McDonald's was closed. Walk a couple of blocks.
That McDonald's, I talked about that.
Yeah.
So for those people that don't know, there's a West 4th McDonald's. It's been there, I'm going to say, at least 30 years, maybe more. I don't even know. I know I was there when I was in college. So yeah, a good 30 years. It was, it's right by, first of all, it can't fail because it's right by 8 train lines,
mm-hmm.
a basketball court, all the housing and
the jazz club stuff.
Yeah, it closed down. It's like, it was like a pillar, and it was like a place you can get, I don't really eat McDonald's, but like drunk people get French fries or coffee. A lot of comics would get coffee. They didn't want to spend a lot of money. McDonald's always had the good coffee, so they'd get coffee before the show, or get cheap dinner for $1 of the $1 menu. Or homeless people would be able to eat a hamburger for $1.
Yeah. And
it closed down.
Yeah.
I mean, the basketball court, people, the guys, men love McDonald's, so
something,
the guys, so it was like really sad.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's one more question that I want to ask. I know a lot of people are concerned about crime around the city and things of that nature. What will you do to kind of curb the situation that's happening now with crime?
Well, crime's a very interesting thing. As I was saying before, I think crime, it's a happy city creates people that don't commit crimes. Happy people don't normally commit crimes. Healthy mentally people don't commit crimes. So to nip it in the butt, so to speak, is that we would, address the mental health issues, our addiction that we're facing right now. If we don't address those things, we're not going to be able to stop preemptively crime. I don't know, police prevent some crime, but they don't really prevent most crime. Random acts of violence are random. Just like so, we need to get, if people are having mental health crisis, we need to have help for them. Or if they're addicted to drugs, we need to nip it in the bud before things get out of hand. And I think that's the way I prevent it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way, to look at things. And I like what you said a lot about also too with mental health, which is a huge thing in that aspect. Over the past summer, I guess the last summer with the elections going on, that sort of thing. Well, it's we move forward now. I guess it's like we're going into October, but there's been situation with the police and minorities and a lot of stuff on those ends. How would your administration approach those things? Because they've been topics, I guess, in the news of late. Well, not since this guy won the presidency. It just seemed to die down. Maybe they was using that to strum up certain things, but
right.
It's still, it's still in the atmosphere of people's minds.
Of course, it is. Yeah. I speak to a lot of people all over the city, and they all, it's interesting because people are like, I don't trust the police, but I want the police. I'm getting that a lot from people of color. It's not,
right.
And we have to build bridges in the way that we need to be fair to our citizens and of all, because, and our police officers are all colors and creeds. I mean, so we need to be fair, and they're doing a job. It's a job, essentially, and a lot of people take pride. We need to create bridges where people feel comfortable with their officers, that, arrest warrants, or people use warrants, that they're using procedure, that they're held accountable for any wrongdoings. And the people need to feel that the police are going to, solve the crime, protect them. When I was younger, you would think that the police officer was the guy you go to if you got lost. And I think every kid, no matter what color their skin, should feel that they're safe around a police officer. And if we don't, that's the mayor's fault. If that doesn't happen, that's the way. That's the head of the city is in charge of creating that bridge. And retraining our police officers. They need to, and making sure that they're mentally sound as well, and they're not going nuts and doing violent things, because that anger is coming from somewhere.
Absolutely. I think that's essential, some of the things that you touched upon. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to see you after this is over and at the inauguration.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you.